Well, on this Father's Day, we wanted to reflect on a political father-son connection. No, not that one. We're not talking about Justin and Pierre. I'm talking about Government House Leader Dominic LeBlanc and his father, Romeo, who served as a press secretary and a cabinet minister for Pierre Trudeau. He then went on, of course, to become Governor General. So LeBlanc the younger joined me recently for some plain talk about what he learned from his dad and what it's like to be the next generation working with a Trudeau. Take a listen.
Dominic LeBlanc, good to have you on Plain Talk.
Thanks for inviting me.
This has been a remarkable 6-7 months for you. Going into government, you for the first time. How's that worked out for you?
You know what, Tom? It's been a phenomenal experience. I mean, when I sort of think back to election night, it started on October 19th when I was at home with some friends and my wife Jolene. We were in Grand Dig at our place in New Brunswick, and we win 32 out of 32 seats in Atlantic Canada. So that's how my evening started that night. I think even in our most optimistic moments, we weren't sure we could win every single seat in 4 provinces. And then you're right, the transition, we were sworn in on that day in early November, which I think will be marked in the imaginations of anybody who was lucky enough to be at Rideau Hall that day. And it's been a fantastic experience.
You are now also the Fisheries Ministers, which interestingly was something that your dad was also once. How does that feel to hold the same portfolio that your dad did?
You know what? It's when I think about it, it's obviously it's quite emotional for me. My dad was Canada's longest-serving fisheries minister, and he was the first Minister of Fisheries and Oceans because he'd convinced the then Trudeau cabinet to take the oceans portfolio from what had been Environment Canada and create the Department of Fisheries and Ocean.
You know, the connection between your family and the Trudeau family is really quite remarkable. Not only did your dad serve Pierre Trudeau as Fisheries Minister, as you serve as Fisheries Minister to Pierre's son, you also babysat Justin Trudeau way back in the day. What was the worst thing that Justin Trudeau as a kid ever did when you were babysitting him?
Well, I can't imagine, Tom, anything bad, because I would have been such a good influence on. I would have been such a good influence on Justin and Sasha and Michelle that I couldn't imagine that the 4 of us would have got into a jam. But my father was a journalist, such a noble profession, Tom. You would recognize it well. He was a journalist and had become press secretary to Mr. Pearson. And then when Prime Minister Pearson retired, he did that job for Pierre Trudeau. When I was born, he was acting as a press secretary. And then, you're right, he went down and became an MP in New Brunswick. The interesting thing is Margaret Trudeau and my mother were also great friends in the 70s and still are today.
You've had a remarkable relationship with the Trudeau family, but you also had a remarkable relationship with your father. But what was the most important thing about politics that Romeo taught you?
My dad saw politics as a chance to really try and look out for people who often don't have somebody standing up for them. If you're lucky enough to have a job like I have now, if I can speak for some of these people and some of these communities in the House of Commons and in the cabinet, and hopefully encourage the government to make decisions that improve the lives of these people, then I've done something positive.
Under what circumstances do you lie?
Probably the best answer to that is when my wife says to me, "Oh, you went for supper at Mama Teresa's. Were you careful with your diet? Did you avoid the French fries?"
And the answer always is...
Oh, yes. No, of course. No, I had steamed vegetables and chicken.
So, you know your wife is watching this right now.
Well, and you know what? I've said to her that in our wonderful marriage and our wonderful relationship, the one question where the answer might not entirely be accurate is, "Oh, were you careful with what you ate? You didn't have pizza at 10:30 with John McCallum, surely. Why did you go to a Chinese buffet?" Like all those no, I didn't go to a Chinese buffet. What are you talking about? I had sushi, right? Like, so where would I lie, Tom? It's usually around bad eating habit.
How long do you want to stay in politics for?
You know what? For the first time ever after the election, I started to ask myself that question. I had hoped to have a chance to be in government and to play a positive role in government. The Prime Minister's given me that chance. You don't want to overstay your welcome, but you also want to be there long enough that you can make a difference. So in my mind, if we're lucky enough to get re-elected, you know, after you've been in government for a couple of terms, I think anybody who wouldn't start to think of what else you want to do. I mean, in 2 terms from now, Tom, I'll be sort of mid-50s, so 20, 30 years younger than you are. So that might be the time. That might be the time to get a pilot's license.
Made it.
Pretty good. Is this the airport we took off from?
This is the one and the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's bad that you get your plane out of the Air Museum, though. That's a bit of alarming.
Dominic LeBlanc, pleasure having you on Plane Talk.
You know what, Tom? Thanks. I've been looking forward to this. We've been trying to find a time. It's a great, great, great chance. Thank you.